I'm disgusting, aren't
Hey, hey there everybody, welcome back to the office, and today I thought I'd do a little bit of a story time kind of video. Yeah, something a little bit different, something a bit interesting, kind of talking about an experience I had in the past with the game industry, and what I learned from it, and all that kind of stuff. Thought it would be kind of cute, so how about everyone just sits back, relaxes, and you can just imagine a story. So today I thought I would like to talk about the day that I decided to jump off the hype train for anything, pretty much. Games, movies, anything like that. Not necessarily a negative thing, but it was the day I decided that I wasn't going to get, excuse me, wrapped up into it anymore. And it was an interesting day because I watch YouTubers all the time that don't get wrapped up in hype. So I always found it a bit confusing as to why some people just couldn't be excited for things. And then obviously, turns out trailers are doctored, screenshots lying, the whole aliens, colonial marines thing, and everything just keeps getting worse and worse. So I understand why people then did it at that point and they just watch E3 for the sake of messing around with it and making jokes and stuff. And I always thought that you jump off the hype train when you hit a certain age as well, when you're just at an age where you don't care as much as you used to, your childlike innocence has gone or anything like that. But no, what it is quite like for me was I was invited a couple of months before Uncharted 4's release, so I can't remember the exact date, but I was invited to London one day to try out Uncharted 4. On two of the levels of the game. Oh no, sorry, one of the levels of the game, the Madagascar level, when you're driving around and it's completely open, you can go to anywhere, find treasures everywhere, solve puzzles, carry on at your own pace. You've got car puzzles, you've got the platforming and the action and the stealth, and it's one of the best levels of Uncharted 4, absolutely. And I was invited, like I said, to go to London to play that particular part of the game before anybody else. Well, I mean, I'm sure it happened in America a few times, but before most people had a chance to even see what was going on with Uncharted 4. And of course, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. This video isn't necessarily, like I said, it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's not like I'm saying, I never want to be invited to these things again or anything. Please don't think that, because they are fantastic fun. And it is a great way to build up excitement. It's a great way to see where creative ideas are going and everything. But when I went there, I had never been subjected to it, because with the Creative Assembly and Alien Isolation it was much more personal. I was able to do an interview, I was able to find out lots about the game. But with the London experience, there were a couple of people from Naughty Dog that were there presenting the game off, telling us a bit of the backstory for the plot and everything. And it was a lot more, I guess the word is corporate. It was a small event, there were only about 10 of us, but it was still more corporate because it was very regimented, that's the word. It was very regimented, it wasn't quite as relaxed. And that's fine, that's absolutely fine. It was fantastic, and I loved it, and I wanted to tell everybody how awesome it was and how amazingly excited I was for Uncharted 4, but then obviously the game fully released, and I gave it a 9, where loads of people I knew that stayed away from trailers and stayed away from everything were like, oh my god, it's the perfect Uncharted game, let's give it a 10, blah 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 blah. I still wouldn't agree with a 10 at this point. I might have to replay it a few times and maybe I would change my mind, I don't know. But it turned out that everyone that managed to stay away from the hype, as it were a lot more surprised, a lot more open to what the game was doing, and that was fantastic. I'm very happy for all the people that managed to think that themselves. However, for me, when I went to the London event, it was presented to me, the whole game was basically, when they showed off that level of Madagascar, the impression I got, not that it was necessarily said, we were not lied to, but it was implied that most of the game was going to be like that. It was going to be more open and going to be more explorative, and you could go to different places and find things and use different vehicles and solve vehicle puzzles. And truth be told, when the full game comes out, I think there's Madagascar and then there's the level when you're in the boat going around the islands. And those are the only, I could be completely wrong, but those are the only two levels that stick out to me massively in my head as being levels that are like that, open, explorative, and like what was entirely presented to us at the event. So at that point, I was expecting the entire game to be like that. I can't stress enough. I loved the event, I loved being invited to it. Please don't be put off of inviting me, anybody, because it's very fun to go and play games and stuff. It makes me sound quite ungrateful, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful at all. It was just because I was still in the childlike innocence kind of mind, and I was suckered into it, and that was my fault for being completely suckered into it. So the whole game was presented like that, and I wasn't expecting more of the linearity and everything, which was already established in 1, 2, and 3. And I thought it was going to break off from it a little bit, and it does break off from it a little bit, but it is still very much more of the same in the other areas, with obviously the new mechanics like the grapple and everything. Yeah, that was basically the day. After that, once the game came out and I fully got to playing Uncharted 4, I was constantly playing it, and this was the sad thing, I was playing it waiting for the thing that Naughty Dog were kind of telling me it was going to be. Not that they did explicitly say, that's what I want to make clear. It was never explicitly said, I was not lied to, but it was very, very implied, heavily implied, that a lot of the game would be like that. So I was sat there waiting for more things like the Madagascar level and the island level to happen, and it didn't happen. And so that crux of enjoyment, crux? Whatever word, of enjoyment was never fully reached for me. I felt like it was even difficult for me to give it a 9, but I did look at the game as a whole and think, yeah, you know what, it was a solid 9. But it did make me think, should I give it an 8? And it's like, I didn't want to feel like that. I didn't want to feel like that. But so after that, I decided, from that moment on, never to get involved with hype again. And I don't see that as a bad thing at all, because I still get excited for things. It just makes me way more... I don't even know if cynical's the word, it just makes me way more critical over the things that I am excited for, because if I'm excited for it, it shows that I already have the interest and the love there from a base level, like with the new Crash coming out on PS4, the remasters of the first 3 games. I want it to be brilliant, I do, and people are thinking that I'm just a negative Neil Crash fan that can't be pleased no matter what the franchise does, and that's not the fucking case at all. I love the franchise and I want it to be as good as I think it could be, and with all the things that I have the issues with, or had issues with, because they have changed it a lot since I made that video, I don't see how that's a bad thing. Like, there were issues, but now I don't have those issues anymore. People making videos and talking online and sending feedback and being critical, it's making the overall product on par, if not better, than the original source, because I know it's obviously objective what you think is quality in a particular game, but still, it's good to be like that. It's good to be like that. It's good to not just sit there and soak it all up, which is what loads of people do at E3, and one day we will all learn that that's not... E3 is just to sell you stuff. And now I know that, so I can enjoy it on the level of just seeing what's being announced, but people genuinely do go insane, forgetting that publishers are trying to sell you stuff, and developers want you to buy their things. That level of complete and utter unparalleled devotion is kind of dangerous, and it can lead to audience and consumer exploitation. So yeah, it was just an interesting realization for me. Ever since then, I decided that the hype train was just not worth jumping onto. The excitement is fantastic, but I wanted to be able to enjoy the full product for what it was after the hype train left. And the problem with the hype train is that it goes way too fast and it falls off the tracks. That's the problem. It's fantastic while you're on it, but it falls off the tracks eventually. It's never going to be as good as your hype. The next train that comes along, the real train, isn't going to be as fast as the hype train. It's going to stay on its tracks, but it's not going to be as fast because it stays on the tracks. So you need to be able to decide, do you want the full-on, high-octane, super fast train that crashes and burns at the end, or do you want the strong, proud train that stays on its tracks, is a little bit slower, but does get to its destination and does give you a comfortable, satisfying journey? That's the kind of choice you need to make. Everyone's different, everyone has their own opinion, everyone can get excited to a particular degree, and like I said, that was just the day I decided that I couldn't do it anymore, because it's a lot different sitting here watching E3 than it is actually being one-on-one involved with people behind making the games. It's a completely different situation. So it can be quite a messy situation sometimes, and luckily with stuff like Alien Isolation and Uncharted 4, the games turned out absolutely wonderful, so it doesn't really, in the grand scheme of things, make that much of a difference. But hype train and hype culture as a whole isn't great, but then I'm sure loads of people have seen videos about that, and all sorts of different people that have created videos about hype train culture and like Total Biscuit and stuff. It's not great overall, but personally that was just the day that I left it, and I think that's fine. I think it's just one of those things that it happens to most people at some point, and And now it's letting me enjoy games a lot more now that I don't get massively invested into them. So that's what I want to try and do for the new Crash, as it were. I saw what I saw and I needed to make that video to kind of say, I want this to be great, so please can we try and change a few things, but I want to try and stay away from more of it as I can so that I can enjoy the product that the people wanted me to enjoy as it is without getting wrapped up in all the other people that are being horribly over enthusiastic about it. So yeah. This isn't like a public announcement. This isn't me telling you to not be excited or anything. It's just that was a little story about how I decided to get off the hype train. It was when I was one-to-one with real people, because like I said, it's different from watching E3. It's completely different. You're on a completely different personal basis with experiencing that level of hype. So yeah, that was it. That's all I wanted to do with this video. So I hope you enjoyed it, everybody. Please leave in the comments below your experiences with hype, when you decided that you shouldn't be doing it anymore, shouldn't be pre-ordering, whatever, up to you guys. I'm gonna go away. Bye, everybody.